stuck inside my house too long. Can't stand being all alone. Wasting hours on my phone. Ready to go now. On my way. I won't let fear hold me back.
Freezing out
Here
there.
to stay. On my way. All of my dreams are now a step away.
Hey guys, so I've actually been struggling with what videos to do next. Like I have a lot of ideas and there's a lot of things that I've gone through, but I just haven't been feeling like passionate about those specific topics. I know that we're in the middle of like a decluttering challenge for this month, and so I could talk more about that, but I'm like, right now there is something that I am obsessing over and I can't stop working on it or thinking about it. And so in between work, I have been researching and learning and planning van life. It's actually something that I have on my dream board that I shared with you guys a while back. If you've been with me a while, you'll know that I have been into van life for a very long time. It's been years. I got my first van like a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And we took one trip and it only made it, what, I don't know. The first trip, honestly, like the first day that we left, we had to drive back home and take it to the mechanic. And it was like, I don't know, $1,000 in repairs or something. And then we tried the next day to leave again. We were heading to Florida and we made it, we just had to take it like super slow. So we were stopped on the hills of Virginia with the hood up and the engine kept overheating is what the problem was. And so that van I purchased thinking it had 72,000 miles on it. Now it was a 1995, so what was reported and what was on the odometer was like 72,000 miles. And I did not do my due diligence by purchasing a Carfax. I looked up the VIN number and like found as much free information as I could, but I didn't want to pay the $45 to, oh, I could kick myself now, because if I had just paid that $45, I would have found out that that van had well over 270,000 miles, or at least the last time before the discrepancy of the odometer on the report, it was like 270,000. So, I mean, it could have been well over 300,000 miles. I have no idea. So I thought I was purchasing something that had low mileage, and come to find out that that was not the truth at all. And yeah, it didn't even last one trip. And so ever since then, obviously, you know that I moved to North Carolina. I had an apartment down there. I recently moved back to Pennsylvania and I am right back on van life. And I think that I kept myself busy down there with kind of designing my apartment and finding furniture and putting the apartment together. And so that was kind of feeding my creative soul. And so once I came back to Pennsylvania, the home I'm living in, we already decorated it and designed it. And so it's like, well, why I'm obsessed with van life, I think that honestly growing up, I always had this fascination with tiny spaces. I remember when I was a kid and I would love going into like groves of trees where it's like pine trees or whatever, and you just kind of like hang out in there. We had this one area that was like a bunch of vines and it just covered this little like area that we could go into and hang out. And I remember being fascinated by that. There's also this children's book, and I wish I could find the title of it, but I remember it being animals, and I remember that they lived in this very small, cozy home, and it was so sweet. And I just remembered dreaming of that feeling, wanting that feeling for my own home. And so I was never really attracted to like mansions or big houses. I just don't feel comfortable in them. And so I think a van life is really kind of a part of that. It's like me finally bringing to fruition the dream that I had as a child, which is like bringing this comfortable space that I designed, and I feel like it's home. I can't say that any home I've ever lived in, I've actually felt like it was home. And I don't know if that's a mind thing. Like, I don't know if that's like something in my mind that haven't been able to grow from, and to, maybe it's just a growth thing that I need to work on. However, I feel led to give van life a try. And so finally, almost a week ago, I purchased a van. I've been looking for a couple months and I never actually pulled the trigger on anything. And I think it was kind of scary because the prices they're pretty expensive. And I didn't want to get something that was old again. But I didn't obviously want to spend $40,000 just for the body of the van and then have to do a build as well. I don't want to be that in debt either. So at this point in time, prices are coming down. It's not like a couple years ago where I know that, even for an older one, you're going to pay 30 to 40,000, and now prices are starting to come down. And so I actually was working with another dealer, and I was going to purchase a smaller van, which I think I said in my last video, and maybe even showed a little bit of video of it. And it was a shorter wheelbase. It was the shortest one that the Ram ProMaster has. And pretty much about a week into the deal, they had run it through service and they were doing all the things that I wanted done to it, which I feel super terrible about. I feel guilty that I then was like, yeah, you know what? Once I drew out the plans on paper, because I had gone on like a Ram ProMaster group in Facebook, and quite a few people were like, you might want to go bigger. Like, I've never heard, one guy said, I've never heard anybody say they wanted to go smaller, but I've always heard they want to go bigger. So just be careful. That would be the only like advice that they really had, which was, you might not want the smallest one. I drew them out on graph paper. The longer, I think I maybe compared it to like the 136-inch wheelbase with the 118, which is the smaller one I was looking at. I ended up finding a 159-inch wheelbase with the ceiling already done and the walls insulated at like, the price was like $22,400. So I was like, and it was an hour and a half away. I really felt like it looked really well taken care of. It has a one owner. I checked the Carfax. They changed the oil and took care of it really well. It had really good records. It only has 41,000 miles, a little over 41,000 miles. And so I really felt like I need to go look at this. So Craig and I drove up to New York and stepped into the van. And it was really nice to be able to see Craig stand up in the back, because the shorter wheelbase with the low roof, he wasn't able to stand up. I was just barely able to stand up in it, but I knew by the time we did the floor and the ceiling, like, I would kind of be hunched and he definitely wouldn't be able to stand up. He'd have to be hunched over as well. And so I just remember looking at him in the back of it and thinking that this feels good. This feels nice. Like, we could actually take trips together and it would be enjoyable. We can cook food. I don't love cooking, but he likes cooking. So I'm like thinking, I'd like him to be comfortable and also just comfortable doing the build as well. So like, I know that he'll help me with building like cabinets and things like that. And I don't want his back is already bad. So I don't want to cause him more pain. And I just thought this is going to be easier. Like one of the videos that I watched actually with a woman who has the 118, she had somebody build out her van, and then they were like, she mentioned, she's like, yeah, they don't do it, and they won't do the lower roofs anymore. So I think they learned like all that hunching over and like being in this small space and everything you have to build, you got to like crawl in and get back out, and it's really hard on your body. And so it makes sense. And so when we went and looked at the larger one, I was totally intimidated by the size. I'm not gonna lie. I really wanted to drive it to make sure that I still felt comfortable in it. And I remember standing there and like, while we had agreed on a price, and then these things like take all day long. If you've ever purchased a used car or a car at all, it takes forever. Don't know why, but you must have patience and take snacks, or just tell them like, look, I'm going to dinner, I'm going to eat, and then I'll come back. They don't like you leaving, but it's like, I have to eat. You're not gonna like me if I don't. So anyway, we did end up doing that. So while we're standing there and like, it had made it to the finance department, and they were running the numbers, whatever, blah, 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 talking to banks probably. And we're waiting, and I'm like looking at Craig, and I keep looking at the van, like going to the window and looking at it. And I look at him and I'm like, he's like, what are you thinking? I'm like, am I doing the right thing? like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And I think he thought that I was nervous about like signing the papers for a loan. And I was like, no, honestly, I'm intimidated by the size. Like I was just nervous. I ended up being like, okay, how big is this thing? How long is it? And how long is it compared to the truck? Because I've been driving around 1500 pickup truck, the crew cab, which is like it has a short bed, but it's got the crew cab. So it's a relatively large vehicle. And so I thought, how big is this van compared to that? They're literally almost identical in length. And once I seen that, I was like, oh, so I'm just going to something that's like taller, but not necessarily longer. And it has a really good turning radius on it. So I felt a lot more confident after I had figured that out. And then I was getting more and more excited. So I just kept like looking out at it and I'm like, this is really happening. Like I was so excited that the ceiling was already done. It already has a fan in the ceiling with the lights and like I could see the fan like peeking out of the ceiling. And I'm like, I have been dreaming about having a camper van for so long. And I see these people like, especially like where I live, which is on Lake Erie, there's a lot of people that tour here in the summer. And so there's a lot of camper vans that are driving around Presque Isle. And I've been looking at them longingly for so long. And I seriously like, I know this sounds so ridiculous, but I'm so excited. I remember when I was in Florida too, and I was visiting Riley and we were coming back from like the Nassau Center area. We'd actually gone to the beach, Cocoa Beach, and we were driving back to Orlando and there's an area near a bridge where there were just like 3 or 4 camper vans. And I'm so excited about the freedom of the lifestyle. And I think it's like, I know there's going to be hardships and I know that it's going to be difficult at times, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. So the build, I'm going to like keep simple. I'm not going to like it's not going to be a luxury van build. One, I don't have the money for that. But 2, I don't want a bunch of things that can go wrong or break. I have felt that way about vehicles for a long time. I'm just not attracted to uber expensive, super technology things just because I know they can go wrong. I work in technology. I have enough of that in my life. I don't want it in my living space. So I am taking into account security and taking into account like temperature for when I take Milo with me. I want to make sure that he's comfortable. So I am taking into account that I will want heat and I will want AC. So those will be 2 a little more expensive things to put into it, but things that I know are important to keep him comfortable. Yeah, I'm so excited. I cannot stop thinking about it. Last night, I thought I had the plans like finalized for how I was going to design the build. I thought I knew, where the bed, kitchen, and little like dining area was going to be. Then I watched one more YouTube video. And I totally changed my mind. I was like, oh my gosh. So if you don't watch Christian Schaefer, she is a van lifer and does also like film, and she's a film, what's that called? A film, I'm losing my mind. I want to say filmographer, but that is not a word. She's a photographer and then she also shoots film. Her work is stunning. And so I've been following her for a couple years, and she recently had an issue where like some of her plumbing leaked and she had to rip out everything in her van. I felt terrible for her because she had cabinets, everything she had to rip out because you cannot have any like water damage in your van. Obviously it's going to cause rust, but also you can get mold, and you're in such a tight, small space that you need to make sure that the air is clean and that you're breathing in, healthy air. And so she had to rip everything out. I remember watching that. I didn't know that she had reshot a video though, of a tour going through her new build. And so I watched it and fell in love. Like I loved her van anyway with the previous build, and it looks similar, but she did do some different things. And so one of the things that I was thinking previously I was going to do, which was have a stationary bed, because I was like, I've seen enough van lifers be like, I knew I did not want to make the bed every day. And so they just went with a stationary bed. However, while I'm drawing it out, the stationary bed takes up like almost half the space of the van. And it's just like, I'm using half the space just for a bed. I'm only going to be in the bed at night. Like, I don't want to hang out in a bed during the day, unless I'm napping, of course. But, so, and another thing that was important to me in this build is that I can take people with me, and or people can just, like, say we go to a festival or something, and then my daughter and her boyfriend go. I want to be able to hang out in the van if it's raining with, you know, and so I want space for me and a few other people to hang out. I do like people, generally, for the most part. So I also want to make friends. And so I want space to, like, I also, what's really important too is a workspace for me, because I do work on the computer. I do work remotely right now. And so, but I work quite a bit, and that's a really important thing to me. And what I loved about her design is she actually has the dinette set, which means you have a dinette set. You've got, like, she's got 2 benches and then one longer bench in the back, and there's a table, and then you can take the table down, put it in the middle, and then you can make a bed. And so one of the things that kind of sold me on it, well, a few of the things. So something that sold me on it was the fact that you have this, like, nice dinette office space. So she said that in the morning, she likes being able to take her bed, and then she makes it, and it kind of gets her in the work mode, in the right frame of mind. And it's something that gives her structure. And I know that I need that in my life. I like now, as an adult, making the bed. I never used to do that before, but now it just makes me feel good. So I'm kind of already in the habit of doing that. So now it's just essentially moving cushions and making the bed. And then it'll get me into work mode, and it'll give me a nice space to have, you know, elbow room and, like, space to talk with people, and yeah, I think it's going to be a lot better for my style of living. So anyway, I still have to draw that out on paper, and there are, like, van building apps that maybe I'll take a look at. I did that for this home. Like, I used a design app to design it first, and now it's really cool to be in a space that you design digitally, and then you're able to, like, look up and see it in real life. It's such a cool feeling. So I might do that with the van as well. Anyway, I just wanted to share something that my brain is, like, really thinking about a lot right now and going through, and I want to take you guys on the journey. So hopefully you find this interesting. I will be sharing ways that I'm going to keep things organized in the van, because obviously it's an even smaller space than where I'm living now. And so I'm going to want to keep things organized. I'm going to want to have, you know, everything have a home and a space. And that takes a lot of, like, thinking through. And I'm sure I'll screw things up. I'm sure that I'll get there and get it done and then be like, oh, I wish I would have done this. Because just about everybody does that. But 'tis life, right? One of the other things I'm really excited about van life, or something that it is actually on my dream board, is I want to spend more time with my parents. They live in southern Texas. I'm in Pennsylvania. I hate winter. I don't want to be here in the winter. I'd much rather be with them, and I want to spend, like, real time with them. I've only been visiting them for, like, a week at a time, and it's just not enough time. I know that my mom loves, she loves decorating her home and designing her home, and she loves plants, but she's really not able to do a lot of that anymore. So I really want to be able to help her with that. I want to get her out of the house and, like, take her to go do things. I want to help with that. I want to be there, and I feel like I need to be there. And so I have a picture of my dad on the dream board. Oh, it's not my dad, but a man fishing in the water. I want to be able to take my dad fishing. I want to be able to take my dad on a trip in this van, and we go somewhere super cool for, like, a week or whatever. Have time for just him and I. He was a truck driver as I was growing up, and I think that that is something that has just helped kind of inspire this in me, is that I was always been so fascinated by how he's seen California, he's seen Colorado, he's driven a semi through New York City. So, like, he has been a lot of places, and I always felt that drive to travel and to see our country. And obviously I want to see other parts of the world too, but right now I just really kind of want to focus on home. I want to be able to be where my kids are when I want to be there, and I want to be able to see my parents. And yeah, I want to see, like, Colorado mountains. I want to see the PNW, and I'm so freaking excited. I want to bring these journeys to you guys because I know that not everyone is able to get out and about. I know that this is a super huge privilege that I'm getting to partake in, and I'm like, I just want to share it with you guys, and I am so excited, and I hope that you are too. And yeah, so until next time, see ya.
Full of hope, I'm on my way, and I'm over the stars.